And for more on the story, I'm joined now by radio host Alex Jones. So first of all, Alex, I want to ask you what your reaction is to these election results. Do you think President Obama is going to have a tougher time accomplishing his agenda, or is this really not going to change much and it's going to be business as usual here in Washington, D.C.?
Well, there's been a major political realignment. The real Tea Party, founded back in 2007 by Ron Paul and other real patriots who are conservative fiscally but are also anti-war, pro-Bill of Rights and Constitution, that's the real Tea Party. And Senator DeMint has written an article in the Wall Street Journal today talking about high-powered Republican lobbyists saying, we're going to go in, we're going to bribe them, we're going to pay them off. And so it's an oversimplification to say that the entire Tea Party is financed by News Corp and the Koch brothers. But it's true that they've attempted to co-opt it and control it, and many Republicans like Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, they have taken on its mantle, even though when you get down to their real actions, they are in the hip pocket of the global corporations. But more than just having one group of corporations behind Republicans and another group behind Democrats, they just hedge their bets. In fact, most of these corporations are financing all of the groups so that they're beholden to them and so that they can control them. But this is the biggest landslide for one party in over 70 years, 65 seats in the House, 8 seats or 7 seats in the Senate, 10 governors flipping to Republican, legislatures. Just like people went out in droves for Obama wanting change, they're desperate, they're hitting the reset button. Now they've gone out in droves for the Republicans, and if they don't deliver, they're going to be out. And so what we see is the public really waking up to the puppet masters and understanding the biggest group above all the other corporations in the Fortune 100 is the major 6 mega banks of the private Federal Reserve who literally control the issuance of currency and credit. That's the big group that's over all of this, and that's why you saw Republicans in the primary, the establishment, go after Rand Paul. Was because he actually wants to audit it and abolish it like his father, Dr. Ron Paul.
So do you think that, we talked about the changes just now, do you think they're actually going to affect President Obama's agenda? Will these guys be able to accomplish what they said they were going to when they were campaigning?
Well, that remains to be seen. You've got the Republican insiders trying to co-opt the Tea Party and any opposition. You've got the media painting all opposition as only being the Tea Party when people are upset across the board and unemployment's off the charts and the economy's shutting down. So the question is, will Obama, teamed up with Republican insiders, be able to continue business as usual? I mean, they fight with each other, but only over the reins of power. And I think they're going to have a lot of trouble doing it. I think that this is the beginning of the end of these special corporate interests that have been sucking the federal purse dry through corporate welfare. And I believe that this Tea Party movement is the best opposition in the last 75 years, the most bona fide, the most authentic. That doesn't mean it's not infiltrated, and it doesn't mean that it's being more and more infiltrated. It's just it signifies issues like the Federal Reserve being private and needs to be abolished, issues like controlling our borders, issues like repealing anti-Second Amendment legislation. These things are becoming more and more mainstream. When Ron Paul won the CPAC Republican straw poll that's coveted, the media tried to ignore it, but that was mainline Republicans, the most powerful in the country, voting for him. And he talks about the CIA shipping drugs into the country and how we need to end all these wars and abolish the Federal Reserve. And so there's a huge awakening conduited through mainline conservatives who are waking up, and the Rupert Murdochs who would say you were a conspiracy theorist if you talked about world government a few years ago, they've capitulated. And so to stay relevant, they're now having to admit that all of this is real as an attempt to politically camouflage themselves. So the beginning of the end of the globalists is here. As Zbigniew Brzezinski said 4 months ago, he said, for the first time in history, humanity is awake and staring at the elite, not the puppets.
And so how much of this election was actually about issues, or was it just rich guys battling each other over, their own agendas?
It's always, in the last 60 or 70 years, been only about rich guys battling with each other over the reins of power. This is the first time that it was somewhat with Obama, but he was controlled, but more so now that you're seeing grassroots really try to take the reins. And so it's a mix of both of those, but the big issue is real topics, real things that affect the people, the shadow government, the shadow power structure, that's now coming out in the open because of the alternative media and shows like yours. So we're beginning to see a real debate form. But no, a lot of important issues were covered. Obamacare was written by the major insurance companies on record to basically force 30 million people to buy overpriced garbage, and it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions.
Right.
People are mad about that. People are mad about the fact that no other country has this open of borders and that there's a crime wave out of Mexico. People are upset about real unemployment above 22% and the government lying and saying it's 9.6. People are angry, and they are not going to get conned by mainline Republicans who aren't for real. And so mainline Democrats are out, establishment Republicans are out. This is the beginning of one of the biggest political realignments in modern Western history. I believe it's the beginning of the Second American Revolution. The answer to 1984 is 1776.
And really quickly, Alex, people are saying that this is the most expensive midterm election ever, and groups have spent $300 million to influence this election. But a new study shows that almost half of this money is coming from undisclosed groups, because apparently nonprofits don't have to disclose their donations. How is that democracy if so many groups can have so much influence on these candidates and virtually no one knows who these guys are and what their agenda is?
You're right, but also the dollar's been devalued, so when you hear numbers about record spending, I'm not sure that's accurate, but it is very heavy spending, and there's a lot of different corporate interests, but there's also, again, back to Ron Paul, raising most of their donations from $25, $50 donations, breaking records in one-day donations. Ron Paul, a few years ago, over $6 million, the average donation was about $21, and that's what the system's really scared of, and all these campaign finance rules aren't to stop the big mega corporations from giving. It's from stopping the average person. I mean, I just had a fundraiser and, raised more than Democrats can or Republicans with their money bombs.
Right.
And I'm completely independent. So the system is scared. It's trying to make all opposition right wing or Tea Party to limit that, to fool liberals into joining with the mainline Democrats. But again, the sleeping giant is awakening. People are getting more sophisticated every day.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see when you follow the money, who's really behind all of it. Radio host Alex Jones, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.